then we get to ask the question, but well, then who am I? Like beyond that executive leader, beyond that the role that I'm holding, or maybe even beyond the mother, the partner, who am I?
Welcome to Awaken Leadership, a space for authentic conversations with people who choose to lead from presence, consciousness, and a deeper inner alignment. Today, I'm joined by Julia Weigert, founder of Soul Wisdom and Sacred Travel, and an embodiment mentor for conscious women navigating professional environments and moments of transition or expansion. Drawn from her own corporate experience as well as years of travel and feminine lineage work, Julia bridges what so many women experience today, a fragmentation and maybe a split between their professional identity and their sacred self. Through private one-on-one mentorship and immersive journeys, she weaves ancient feminine wisdom into the realities of modern leadership. Her work supports women in moving from performance to embodiment, where intuition, integrity, and inner authority are no longer strategies, but a natural and sustainable expression of their wholeness. Julia, I'm so thrilled to have you here with us today. How are you feeling?
Well, hello, Carmen. Thank you so much for having me, and also a warm welcome to everybody who's listening or watching to this. I am really excited, especially, you left me a private message just shortly before the conversation that I feel really sets the tone and the field for our conversation. So I'm, yeah, just really excited, and it's a lot of things that I'm passionate about, and sharing that I feel also can inspire anyone who feels called to go deeper these days.
So, about the message, just to share a bit of background with everyone who's watching, my mind was blown away by an episode that Julia shared from her podcast on ancient pilgrimage routes and the path of illumination. So, for the ones who know, I'm organizing a pilgrimage on El Camino, the Camino de Santiago, from Portugal to Spain to the St. James Cathedral, Santiago de Compostela. And my mind was completely expanded by new knowledge that Julia shared about sacred rites of passage, illumination, and sacred rituals that have been done on this pathway on the Camino de Santiago and many other routes around the world. But this one particularly interested me. And I really want us, Julia, to go deeper into that and understand a little bit more. I have to say it's fascinating, and I don't know much about it myself. I really want to learn from you because you are the expert on this. So would you please share with us, illuminate us on this path?
Wow, where even to start? So let me maybe like share a little bit more from the beginning also, so people can understand and put it into context a bit how I came about it. And I want to say that, I've always been like a big travel bird. I have a Sagittarius sun, and we are known for like the travelers, which is really like ingrained in my being in a way. So for me, there is no destination like far enough away to travel or to explore and get in contact with cultures. And from very early on, I was like, even as a kid, I was fascinated with ancient cultures, temples, pyramids, like anything and everything old, because it was just such a visceral feeling for me. Even reading about it or seeing pictures or documentary, for me, it was like I was living there. Which later I found out I had been living there. And when I would travel, whether for work or just for leisure, things would happen to me. And now you could say, like, oh, okay, this is normal. Because, of course, when you travel, you expose yourself to different cultures. Your mind gets expanded, your perspective shifts. But usually that would also be things, like coming from deep inside, where, I don't know, I would just like break down in tears and not really know what was happening. Like stirring emotions, stirring inner knowings, in a way that back then I had no idea what they meant, nor, of course, did I even know how to handle or process them. And it was later on my path and when I started my spiritual journey that I understood that it was places, it was landscapes, it was sacred sites that were, and I'm going to use the word, like initiating me into a deeper knowing of who I truly was as a Julia, but also as a soul who has come to this life, to this earth, lifetimes over lifetimes, and did work in service to humanity, and the earth. And so that is when, I embarked on, like people were brought on my path, and through landscapes and sites, I discovered that there was a very different perspective of traveling and a different perspective of how we can move the earth. And what I also discovered through my own research, through maybe you would call them mystery schools, maybe that I attended, like trainings that I did, but basically my own research and my own travels, attuning with the energies of places, that a lot of countries, a lot of pilgrimage routes, a lot of temple sites hold so much more than just history or archaeology, but they were actually built as sacred mirrors and structures to harness earth energy, to communicate with the celestial realms, like as earth, as one particle of the greater cosmos, and also to introduce concepts of consciousness expansion to people. So initiate humans who were finding that path into the deeper mysteries that life hold. And the Camino de Santiago is one of them. So I'm just going to pause here.
Yes, it was so exciting, and thank you for this background introduction, because you've been doing this work for many years. And you have discovered or embodied through these journeys a deeper connection with spirituality, with who Julia is. And you received probably, like you said, information about you being in other lifetimes, maybe in the same sacred sites, and being in service to people there. And I'm so curious, what could the Camino de Santiago bring to people who are embarking on that particular journey, myself included? Because, as you know, I've walked this path before, but never had my mind open towards this possibility of being part of an initiation process. And from what I understood from you, Santiago de Compostela is only the first step on that initiation, illumination path. And it's interesting how we are starting there. And I'm just saying now, maybe there will be more. I don't know. Because usually people walk backwards, right? They walk towards Santiago, and that's the culmination of the journeys. But you're actually bringing an idea that the path is actually walked in a different direction, that this is connected to the first chakra of our body, and it's going towards Scotland, actually, you mentioned. So I'm really curious. Let's come back to earth in a way and say, okay, for somebody walking this path together with me and so many people, all the people who are doing this pilgrimage, what could they expect from, not even expect, because it's not even an expectation. What could be possible? What can we create? What kind of connections, what kind of energies can be brought up to to life. They always been there, but yeah, what can come to the surface?
Yeah, that's a huge question, and I want to start by maybe first reframing or putting the word pilgrimage in context a little bit, because for many people, maybe even coming from a Western lensing, the way we usually know pilgrimage is in a very religious context, which is can be. But the original sense of pilgrimage is not tied to a religion or a single concept. And I feel in a state of walking towards a knowing that we seek, whatever that might be, a personal clarity for your path, or maybe some who have maybe lately followed that peace walk that the Buddhist monks did, like through the whole US, for example, was a pilgrimage in a way where they held a collective intention. So all of that is possible. And people have been pilgrimaging forever, forever, to experience community and connection with the earth, with landscapes, but also with themselves. And when we embark on a pilgrimage, what I feel is really it becomes that sacred mirror of whatever is happening on the outside is an invitation to see inside. What does the outside reflect to us? What's happening inside? So even, and you were sharing that, a story about your own pilgrimage walk on the Camino, where with this very little pebble in your stone, in your shoe, and what happened. And there is these very little moments on the path, but also there might be big moments on the path that hold insights for our own becoming. And so I feel when we step out of it's not just the comfort zone, but it's the regular hustle and bustle of life. We might be an entrepreneur, we might be an executive or an employee, we might be a mother, we might be this, da 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 da, and there's all these to-dos, and then we step out to just become present. Like that's all that is needed. Because it's in the presence that triggers show up, that emotions show up, that like all of the struggles in a good and in a bad way show up. And I feel it's in that permission state where we just allow everything to be, we allow ourselves to feel everything, that we expand our capacity to live life. Because usually what happens in these moments where we are caught up in all the to-dos, like when there is something that comes up for ourselves, specifically as women, we push it away. Like, oh, now there's no time for that right now. I can't process that right now. Let's keep that for another moment, but that moment never happens. And so, and sometimes that adds up, right? So this is things that can happen, and when we tap into that collective field of, think of the entire earth is a collective memory bank, like an energetic memory bank, kind of like a holograph that you don't see, but with all your little receptors that you have that go beyond the regular senses, you tap into that, you feel it, you may see something, everybody can sense energy. It's just to the extent how you allow that reality to come true and be part of your reality consciously, that you get to experience it. And so on pilgrimage, there is a recalibration happening of the outer noises turning down in a way, and the inner noise may be suppressed, or maybe what you consciously want to access is coming up. Paired with, and whether you know this or not, it doesn't matter. But as you just experienced, when you know that these sites that you might intuitively be drawn to, the energy that they hold, or the initiation pathway, the portal that you can step into, it just blows your mind, like knowing that there is so much more than we ever think of.
So, so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for taking us on this journey. And from almost, I felt you were bringing these practical elements of quieting the mind, bringing like a meditation, walking meditation, self-reflection, clarity maybe in the decisions that we have to make, even searching for healing, but also this path of inner knowing and realizing that the world that we see is only a reflection of our inner world, and we are the creators of this world. We can make changes based on our choices. We can change that. So it's such a beautiful way. And also the energy that you mentioned, how we can feel the energies of places, how we can connect with Mother Earth and understand that we are only a small intricate part in this immense beautiful tapestry of life, already brings us a different understanding of who we are and what are we doing here. I would love to ask you a little bit about the sacred sites as places of initiation, even before they became religious destinations for travel, for pilgrimage, and specifically about Santiago de Compostela, because I learned from you that it was a site there for ritual and tradition way before St. James his remains were brought there. And also that is connected to the energy of the moon. So how do we bring that feminine energy into the process of initiation, and how can that be also connected to our intuition as leaders? Not only, men and women, we need that feminine energy in an intuitive process in our leadership. So there are two parts to it. On one side, tell us the sacred sites and initiations. How is the moon connected to that, and how can we benefit from it?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question, and I think we can
Weave
perfectly
into it.
weave that all together.
Yeah.
So, I was saying before that a lot of landscapes actually mirror an initiation process, or are part of a bigger landscape, and I think that partially what also the Industrial Revolution, in a way, and the area that we live in did, was that we specialize so much in certain things that we keep them apart from each other. So it becomes very fractaled, and life becomes very fractaled and separated, and also very linear. It's like there's always a bigger, a higher, like more, and that's also usually in the corporate world what we associate with achieving or success, right? What we completely forget is that, well, we are nature, we are part of the seasons, we are part of the cycle. Life does not happen linear. Like if you look at a tree or a flower, especially that we are recording this, we're kind of like in the transition of winter to spring. There isn't much happening outside. Everything is like happening inside the earth. And just because on the outside there isn't much progress visible, it doesn't mean that there is nothing going on. There's a whole lot going on. And so it's just this changing your perception that you are part of something bigger. And what we, like coming back to the sacred sites, when we look at a church, a pyramid, a temple, like whatever that is, a stone circle. And a sacred site doesn't necessarily have to be a label sacred site. It can be a place that is very dear to your heart, just in the woods behind your house. But it's a place where the earth holds energy, and there is no, if you think of, I always like to refer to it, we all know that emoji that only holds the meridians. This is in the way, I love how to explain that, because you visually see the earth has these meridians, and this is energetic pathways. And this is not a concept that I came up with, but it's actually like, you can go into Aboriginal tradition, they would call them song lines. You can go into Chinese tradition, they call them dragon lines. So there is many different ancient wisdom paths that speak about and hold this wisdom still up today. But what also happened within religion majorly, or when Christianity came, is they would overcast in a way. Like, speaking about Europe, you would have these sites with a stone circle, for example, or just where the ancient ones and the Druids, the lineage holders also of Magdalene lineage, or like other traditions, where they would practice more a connection and a communion with the earth in sacred ritual, in honoring and venerating the seasons, the cycles, the feminine, where death is a part of that as well, where they would come together and perform ritual, or just consecrate, come together in community, where they would share over a bonfire, talk, and pass on the teachings that were present. And in this etheric field, in this energetic vortex, so to say, it is still present. And Christianity would come and put churches and cathedrals on these spots, not because they chose it for beauty, but because they knew that there was a power spot naturally, like in the earth, because there is these energy lines converging. Usually there is water involved as well, because water is a conductor of energy, right? Usually it is places where there are certain crystalline structures, maybe quartz or other placements of crystals that amplify certain energies. So these are the major three components of a sacred site in general, I want to say. And then they would come and place these structures on top as an architectural placement to harness these energies. Now, I'm not saying this as a bad way, but what happened in the course of this as well, that also these ancient or these nature-based traditions were rather like cast out. And what happened was that they went underground. So if you look at any churches, and like specifically when we talk about the Camino de Santiago and the bigger picture of Europe, as you also mentioned, I shared a map with you where it goes like all the way up to Scotland and Rosslyn Chapel. And there is also Chartres in Paris, for example, and other ones. And when you take that as that entire map, first, again, we have a mirror, we have an overlay of our own body as to where are our energy centers, and what are the certain initiations or energies that these specific cathedrals speak to, where they, in the crypt, where these nature-based traditions would go underground. They would teach in the crypts, because this is where the energy from the earth is also the strongest, and it also has this element of, we can't practice in the seen realms anymore because we will be punished or persecuted, so we go underground. So this is usually a very, very powerful spot. So any cathedral, any church that you visit, and regardless your, religious context or background, I think we can all agree that when we stand in these places, there's just such an awe that comes over us, because we are feeling that we are part of something bigger. So that's a little bit the part about the sites. And I think the other part is, what I see also with many women from a corporate background who come on trips with me. It's just one fact for sure is that identity dissolves completely. And This is not always a thing that comes without crisis, I'm going to be honest. So it's not always a very comfortable thing, because specifically if you have been taught to source your authority, to source your identity out of success in a field where that is kind of like all crumbling now, where you learn that everything that you put up in your entire world does no longer feel true to you, or it doesn't feel aligned anymore. We go on this heroes or heroines journey where we really come into the 0 point with ourselves, and we get to ask the question, but well, then who am I? Like, beyond that executive leader, beyond that the role that I'm holding, or maybe even beyond the mother, the partner, who am I? And for my understanding, it is not something that can come from the outside, but it can only come from within. And so it's when you quiet everything on the outside and you sit in presence with yourself unapologetically and very, very honest, that's when the answers arise from within.
It's amazing to listen to you. It's such a beautiful energy that comes through. And what you're speaking of, this hero, or how do you call it for women? Hero and Heroine, yeah, heroine journey. It's almost what you were speaking one time before about the search for the Holy Grail. And actually, the Holy Grail is in us. We are searching outside, but it's a journey within. We have to come back to self, to recognize who am I beyond all these masks, expectations, all the things that maybe I thought I should be. But once we are connected to the true authentic self, and we know we understand our purpose, everything becomes lighter. Everything becomes maybe enlightened, right? It's from that connection with the spirit that it brings us that knowledge. And you also spoke about the corporate women journey, and I know you had your own corporate journey yourself. And I'm curious, and if you would be willing to share with us your personal story of awakening, or how I call it, awakened leadership, right? So where was, if there was a crisis, or there was a process that you went through to come to a certain realization of who you are and what you're here for.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I actually feel it's very important to speak about breakdowns as breakthrough, because I've been through it. I know you've been through it as well, and I know many other women who have been through that as well, or who I'm supporting through that. And it is something that I'm sensing we speak too little about in terms of failure, or even just situations that make us highly uncomfortable. And one thing that I have learned where I'm standing now, also through the journey that I was on, and in particular all the work that I'm doing, like with the Magdalene lineage and also Magdalene Reiki, the capacity that you have for yourself and to hold yourself through difficult situations becomes so vast that it does not necessarily make it less uncomfortable, but you are moving through that with a lot more ease and grace. So when I look back, like, I don't know, 15 years or so from now, where I guess my realization started. And, I also find it funny in a way how when we look back on our path, there is so many moments. Like for me, even during my childhood or adolescent phase, where I can clearly say now, that was a clear signal from the universe, like, putting me on the right path. Did I resist? Hell yes. Did it make it more uncomfortable? Yes, it did. But when it finally clicked, life got a lot easier. And when I was finally at the point to like fully surrender and what had been laid out for me versus what I thought where I needed to go, or what I thought who I needed to be in order to please other people or be loved or be successful. And so for me, it's been a big accumulation, I want to say, of a health crisis, a deep health crisis, but also emotional crisis. And that led to a complete burnout in the job that I was literally like, I had a night where I got up because I needed to go to the bathroom, and my legs just crashed under me and I just dropped to the floor. And I couldn't move for 2 hours. And I was just crying, not really, again, like from a mind's perspective, understanding what was happening. But my body was like, no more, no more. And for one entire week, I could not move. And that immobility was so frightening to my mind because, of course, your first thought is like, are you dying? Like, what's happening to you? What's happening to your heart? Like all of these things that you could feel, what's happening to your health. And once that first layer kind of like had faded, there was all of these other emotions that came, and like, okay, why is this happening to me right now? And I could sense, how my mind and how my ego was really surrendering in terms of it. Can you just let that be? And you will know why. But for now, we just need you to move through that. And it's been definitely a journey of over, I want to say, like 3 entire years, but where I started to uncover who I really was. And I want to say also to encourage anybody who feels that you are at this stage, like the moment that you really surrender and just drop, people will be brought on your path, modalities or situations will cross your path where you might not necessarily realize in that moment, but later on you will be so grateful because you know that this was clearly like the universe helping you and putting steps onto your path, where it's like, oh, here's the next one. And, also from a corporate background, like we are taught to like think ahead and strategize, which I'm all about that because I'm a process and project manager. So I have a lot of structure within me. Now I know because also one of my main guides is Athena, and she's a goddess of not just war, but like strategy actually. So she's a great helper of mine, but I also know that I can allow myself to really rely more on what's coming from inside. And for a super long time, I had this, again, like coming back to, this fractal being inside of me where it's like, oh, this is Julia going, like doing her senior process management role and like jetting the world and like handling all these different projects and programs. And then there is the Julia doing her morning ritual and doing her meditation and doing her priestess certification. And it never ever occurred to me that I was actually allowed to bring the two together. And the moment that it finally clicked, like, in my body, that this is who you are, so this is what you have to bring, and you don't need to hide that. It doesn't mean that I'm, coming to the office like spreading rose petals around, but it might actually mean that I might smudge the office after a meeting that didn't go so well, or like to just take a breath before we start a team meeting and align everyone. Like little things where we are allowed to bring that feminine wisdom in as well. And that was where, like that moment where these two could coexist together, everything changed completely for me.
It takes a lot of courage to come back to self and realign the parts that coexisted, but somehow we keep them aside. It's a very, a story that I hear so much when I work with clients, and it's also my story as well. And it also takes a lot of courage to show up at work completely as you are and smash the office with Palo Santo if something didn't go well, and know that that's beneficial not only to you but to everyone around. And for the people in the office to have an understanding of what's happening. So you almost bringing that knowledge to the office. I know it's not easy. It's not easy to integrate in all our parts and be fully present like that at work. So thank you so much for sharing your personal story. I'm curious, coming back to the Camino and also to Magdalene Reiki. You mentioned that you are a priestess, and I learned this about you recently. That's also something you don't say in the first introduction, right? So that's, there are certain parts of us that have to come out in the right moment, right? With the right audience, with the right environment that supports us to be fully who we are and without judgment or trying to change us. So coming back to that, what can you tell us also from a leadership perspective? How can we integrate all that in the energy work, the priestess, the sacred sites, initiations, and how is that helping us on our leadership journey? Why these kind of journeys and pilgrimages are important?
Okay, let me tune in for a moment because I feel there is a lot here and I just want to feel what's most beneficial to say right now. First, it's a process. And I mean, when I started, or even 4 years ago when I founded Soul Wisdom, that came from a deep, deep inner knowing without knowing where this would lead me. And also what I experience a lot in my own path is that whenever I sense or I get a glimpse of like, I have it all figured out, like that very moment, everything crumbles again and you're like, no, you're not.
No.
You don't. So I guess I was always, and it's not something that I have dropped completely, but I'm also still a very analytical person. I love learning, I love teaching, and there's a lot of information and wisdom that I want to use the word consume with my mind. And I also learned that this is worth nothing until you allow that to really drop into your body and make it an embodied experience. So I can read, and for me it's really something where I'm like, I love traveling. I've always had that passion for ancient sites, for ancient civilizations. I also bring everything else that I have from a corporate background. So now I'm putting that into my own offerings in a way of being a transformation and transition guide in so many ways. But whatever that is for you, I think it's whatever you feel drawn to inside, whether this is art or anything that really makes you feel alive, but you also haven't fully allowed yourself to experience that and embody that. Go there. Like, what was the things that you really loved to do as a child? We're not doing these things anymore because we're like, oh, this is not what an adult does. But go back and connect to that energy and that emotion, how it makes you feel. And that's usually a very good starting point. And, when I, like one of the first things on my path that came to me was Reiki, like in the very traditional Japanese lineage. And it's maybe, if you are familiar with energy work, you might have heard about Reiki. And what that did to me was opening a channel inside that was already there. But to be frank, it wasn't really my cultural experience, like from that Japanese lineage. And I would give sessions, or I would work with Reiki energy, and still have that voice in my head where it's like, you're not doing it right. Like, this is not how you're supposed to do it. And when I found Magdalene Reiki, which is so feminine, that really hit home for me, because I feel it's not just a modality, but what it does, it changes the fabric of how you experience reality. And it brings that embodied part not just into an energy session or an energy healing, but actually at your dinner table, in your kitchen, when you are cooking or when you are preparing lunch. It brings it into the boardrooms, because it's a frequency that translates into how you sense, like coming back to the beginning of the conversation, what is your unique channel to read your environment and to read your field, and how to harness that as a gift and not be intimidated by it, so you understand your environment better and you can also navigate that environment better. So how I feel that translates to leaders, even if I feel we take the figure of Mary Magdalene, and again, I'm not talking about any religious context. This is completely free from any of that, because the person that we might have been introduced to in the Bible is very different to who she actually was. And I know there is so many women around the planet right now who are waking up to this, what I call Magdalene consciousness, which is, it's a frequency, but it's also an embodied state of being that specifically as women, we are holding, like physically with our wombs, the template to birth a new reality, to birth a new generation into being. And that's where we're standing right now. I mean, look at politics, look at economics, like everywhere in the world, there's chaos. There's things that are crumbling, structures that are crumbling. So who are the ones who are within this chaos, holding the torch, holding the light, and like walking the people through? It's the Magdalenes, because Magdalene is a title. It's not a name, it's a title that means watchtower. And how can we be that watchtowers, whether this is in the corporate environments or in our homes?
What a beautiful metaphor of the watchtowers for us women as we are stepping into our Magdalene power. Thank you so much. It's been such an enlightening conversation. Thank you for being so honest and going so deep within yourself. We are almost close to the end, and I could talk to you for hours and hours. As I told you from the beginning, it's going to be hard for us to stop the conversation. But if the people who are watching would like to get in contact with you, how can they find you?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, and thank you for making me share about all of the things that I'm passionate about. And I hope that this also inspires and like leaves these little sparkles inside of you where like, oh, I can go there more often. Thank you for the permission.
Yes.
So that's what I'm hoping.
Amen.
So I have a website. It's www.soulwisdom.ch. You can find me there. And I don't have LinkedIn. I know this might be a little bit weird for people in the corporate world, but this is a conscious choice of mine. I play a bit more on Instagram, so it's Soul Wisdom by Julia. But otherwise, I also keep a local community if you are tuning in from Switzerland. So just, yeah, message me, and I would be super happy to be in touch.
Thank you so much, Julia. And I wish already that we'll have another conversation to go deeper in these topics. There's so much more to talk about. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in to the Awaken Leadership Conversations. If you found it beneficial, if this episode spoke to you, please share it with other people who might also be interested in a different way of leading. See you next time for the next episode. Bye bye.